Jess.
Hi.
So good to see you. Thanks for joining us today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I think we have a really big treat today for our PairTree community. We're talking with Jess Nelson, and she is at On Point Legal in Louisiana. And I had the opportunity to meet with Jess a couple weeks ago and was just blown away by her story and what she's doing now. And so I thought it'd be awesome to have her speak with the rest of our community. And so I think I'll just do a quick intro on PairTree and then a quick intro on you, and then we'll jump into some questions. We're going to try to keep it around 15 minutes today so that people can do a quick listen in the car if they're driving. So for those that don't know, I'm Erin. I'm the CEO and co-founder of PairTree, and we are a connection platform that increases and accelerates connections between adopting families and expectant moms. And Jess today is a two-time birth mom that she'll talk about a little bit, but now she's also, and we'll have her discuss this too, but she's also now working with adopting families and expectant moms in a legal capacity at On Point Legal. Paralegal?
Yes. Yeah. Paralegal, adoption assistant, birth mom advocate, marketing coordinator. I pretty much wear every hat except that of my boss, the attorney.
Okay, perfect. Yes. Most of us are familiar with the multi-hat approach. Okay, good. And they are based in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. So
yes, ma'am.
Diehard LSU Tiger fans.
Yes. Yes.
So why don't we start, if you want to just dive into your story a little bit and tell us your background. And I think obviously the story is around giving birth 2 times, and then how you found your way into working in the adoption industry.
Absolutely. And I will give the short and condensed version. So I became pregnant when I was in college back in Michigan, where I'm originally from, and was just finishing up school. Dad wasn't in the picture, was kind of unclear of where I wanted to go next as far as school and career and things like that. So when I found myself pregnant from a not great situation, I made the decision to make an adoption plan and placed my daughter through a couple that had a disrupted adoption that I actually knew through working at Buffalo Wild Wings when I was in college. So I had my daughter in 2011 and placed her for adoption with them, and placed with one of the biggest agencies in the United States, certainly the biggest agency in Michigan, and just didn't have a great experience. The counselor that did my pre-surrender counseling sessions was the caseworker for the adoptive parents who did their home study. So not that I was unsure of my decision to place or that I wasn't confident in my decision, but there was no one that was there just to talk to me and to counsel me and to support me. And I left the hospital with the plans to have an open adoption. And as soon as the adoption was finalized, the adoptive parents cut off all contact. And the open adoption that we had talked about just ended up becoming a closed adoption. And it was just a lot to deal with. I hadn't told anyone that I was pregnant. I think 2 of my friends in college knew. Hardly anyone knew about my decision to make an adoption plan and following through with it. And my insurance company actually screwed up, sent a hospital bill to my parents, who I hadn't told yet. My parents called me after getting a bill for an ultrasound and said, "Are you pregnant?" And instead of talking to them about it and telling them, me still dealing with the grief and trauma associated with being a birth mom and placing a child for adoption, I ran and made my way down to Louisiana. I was supposed to stay here for a summer and have now been here for almost 9 years. But in, essentially running away, because that's what I did, and trying to work through everything on my own, when I became pregnant in 2017, also under not the best of circumstances.
Mhm.
I, again, was dealing with the fact that I had made an adoption plan and had a really bad experience. So I hadn't dealt with all of the grief and the trauma that comes along with that. And the concept of parenting after placement, I couldn't wrap my head around it. I tried for months. I was in therapy for a long time. And by the time I was 6 months pregnant, I just decided I couldn't do it. I was still living down here. My family's in Michigan. I had I still to this day have a really great group of friends and a really supportive group of friends, but I didn't want to struggle and have my daughter struggle as me being a single mom and being away from all of my family and most of my support system. And so I made the decision to place her for adoption and have the best open adoption that in my opinion, anyone could ever possibly hope to have.
Is that because it was your second time around and so you were smarter the second time around, or you knew more about what to ask for, or to advocate for yourself, or was there an agency or an attorney advocating for you at that point?
It really none of the above. It was, I met my daughter's family and just instantly clicked.
Where did you meet them?
Through my friend and one of their friends. They were at a nail salon for a bridal shower, and my friend's friend was talking about my daughter's adoptive parents, who had just had a disrupted adoption and that they were on this journey to adopt. And I had been talking to my friend about being pregnant and not really knowing what I was going to do, not really feeling like it was the right time for me to be a mom and to parent. And she texted me and then called me, and her and I and her friend and the adoptive parents all met for lunch and stayed there for hours and hours and talked, and we left, and I felt like I had known them for years.
That's great.
And they were working with my boss. They had decided to work with him on their adoption journey. And so that's how I met my boss, was when I made the decision to place my daughter for adoption. And so I met my boss and the associate attorney, Rebecca, that used to be at our firm, who ended up, I had already known her. And so we just ended up being the best of friends, and still to this day are. And so I placed my daughter for adoption through the attorney that I work for.
And you said that this is a great open adoption now.
It is amazing and wonderful. I was actually texting with my daughter's mom this morning and last night about plans to go see their son play baseball this weekend. And they are moving into a new house right now. They just built a house. And so my boyfriend and I are planning on going over there this weekend as well to help them pack and move.
Jess, let me ask you a quick question on that. And I know it's a little bit off schedule, but so what is it like from an adopting family standpoint? We have quite a few adopting families in PairTree, and I'm just curious, what are the attributes or the characteristics of a really good relationship? Is it just the level of communication is there, or are there other components that make it a good relationship?
It's both parties being able to be open and honest and communicate, but it's a lot of work. When my daughter's parents had originally started out on their adoption journey, they had said from the beginning that they want as closed of an adoption as possible. And then, which I didn't know at the time. I met them and I fell in love with them and I trusted them. And so I kind of said, everything we'll figure it all out. Everything will work out the way that it's supposed to. And I didn't know this at the time, that they had originally wanted a closed adoption.
Hmm.
But they told me after we had lunch, they left and they looked at each other and said, we can't not have her in our life. Even if I would have made the decision to parent and not place my daughter, they said they still just had so much love for me and wanted to have me in their lives. And our relationship didn't start out what it is today, but my daughter's mom, Janie, we both put in the work on a daily basis. And so not only do I have a really great relationship with my daughter, but I have a really great relationship with Janie. She really is one of my best friends, aside from my boyfriend or my little sister. She's probably the first one that I tell something good to, or I vent to after I've had a bad day, or if something's frustrating me. She's one of my top people that I reach out to. And so I really think it's both of our commitment to doing what's best for Ella and having an open adoption and having that relationship and the connection to her biology really is what's best for her. And so both of us made that commitment very early on. And every day we've worked towards it. And now we're almost 3 years in. Ella will be 3 in 2 weeks.
Wow.
I know. And our relationship is stronger than it's ever been. And I think over the years, it's only going to keep getting stronger.
I have to imagine, and I asked this, I don't know if this is out of line, but that there's probably some weird lines that you don't want to cross and that kind of thing. We have 2 birth families, and our birth moms are so respectful. I mean, more like I would give them more latitude to be in our lives, but they're just so respectful, I think, of a line that I don't even know where that line really is, but I know it exists. But even the terminology, like you say, your daughter's mom. Have you guys run into anything like that?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Have you run into any of those situations? Or
Janie will fuss at me because I'm the same way. Open adoption is not co-parenting. I'm not, yes, I'm Ella's birth mom or her first mom, depending on what, some people prefer as language, but I'm not her day-to-day mom. I'm not there for everything. Janie will text me and tell me on a daily basis, a cute picture, she's being extra sassy, or she's sick or something like that. But I'm not involved in parenting decisions or school or discipline or anything like that. And so I'm the same way. I'm really respectful of that line. I very rarely ever will invite myself to come to their house or come to one of their son's baseball games or anything like that. But Janie will fuss at me. She'll tell me, like, I have an open invitation. I can stop by. If I don't text her for 2 days because life happens, she'll text me and fuss at me and tell me that I can't go 2 days without reaching out to her, which I'm so grateful for. But I don't ever want to overstep my bounds or invade their family unit or anything like that. So I don't know what the line is, but I think we as birth moms give ourselves a line that we try not to cross. Mm-hmm. So we wait a lot of times for adoptive parents to reach out and build that bridge and make sure that we have that communication, because we don't want to seem clingy or like we're trying to co-parent or we're overstepping boundaries or we don't understand boundaries or something like that. And my relationship with Janie and her family and my daughter is 1 in a million. It is, when you talk about open adoption and the different ends of the open adoption spectrum, my open adoption relationship has just completely blown the front door wide open on open adoptions. So I know that it's not the normal, and a lot of adoptive families and adoptive parents aren't quite ready for that, because having so much openness and communication makes people feel like it's potentially co-parenting.
Yeah. Well, I also feel like I think in our experience, our adopting families feel that way before they go through the adoption.
Right.
And then having gone through that now twice, I couldn't go through that experience without telling the birth moms, please be in our lives forever.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of adoptive parents do start off, no, I want to just send emails every once in a while, or send an update, or send pictures on holidays. And then you spend months getting to know this woman, and she gives you this amazing gift. And now you, like Jamie said, you can't imagine not having a relationship with your children's birth moms and having her in your life.
Yeah. I have 2 more questions. We're going to have to do a couple more of these to get to all the questions I have for you, but 2 more questions for this one. One is, when I want to know what your experience is like now working with both adopting families and expectant moms. And then 2, 3 questions, shoot. Okay, so I want to know that. The other one is, I want to know what advice you give expecting moms now that are maybe considering adoption, or that they've actually selected adoption. And 3, I want to know what you're doing, or where you are in your kind of grief journey.
Okay, so first, it is a wild ride being a birth mom and working in the trenches as an adoption professional, because I'm not just a consultant that does profile books or a social media influencer. I am every single day drafting the acts of surrender that expectant moms are going to sign, the same documents that I signed when I terminated my parental rights. And it's hard. 9 times out of 10, when I'm drafting surrenders for expectant moms to sign, I bring my laptop and my work home with me, because I will almost always cry when I'm drafting an act of surrender for another expectant mom to sign, because I know how difficult it is. She will sign her name or initial 47 times in a act of surrender document. And it's the hardest piece of paper, or 18 pieces of paper, that she will ever sign. And so I come home and I sit at home and I draft it. And every single time I do, it brings up all of the emotions that I felt when I signed my acts of surrender for both of my daughters. The first one I signed in the hospital in Michigan, which is one of the things I wish, if I had a magic wand, that's one of the things that I would change first, is women being forced to sign relinquishments or active surrenders or something like that in the hospital 24 hours after they deliver.
Right.
But as a birth mom and working with expectant moms and adoptive parents, I have to walk a really fine line. Sometimes I want to shake our clients, the adoptive parents, when they say things that are uneducated or not appropriate. Just in terms, like when an expectant mom is probably placing her child for adoption for financial reasons, and they make comments about wanting to require her to get drug tested before they will help pay any of her bills, or when they comment, or when they make comments about keeping in touch after, or when she's making her hospital plan and she doesn't want the adoptive parents to be in the hospital. Some adoptive parents have a sense of entitlement that they are adopting this baby, they are paying her medical bills and living expenses. So some feel as though they are entitled to be at the hospital, and they're not. And I say that quite frequently. I have told quite a few of our clients that in a polite and respectful way.
Well, do you feel I'm sure they're open to it. They may just be kind of misinformed in terms of like the amount of control that they have, or the amount of education that they have on the actual process in terms of what happens.
Right. And some of them, once it's explained to them a little bit more, they are a little more receptive. But some of them, especially now with COVID, and you only have one person that can be in the hospital with you, and sometimes that's just not going to be the adoptive mom. An expectant mom gets her support person, and sometimes that's just not the adoptive mom.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had an adoptive mom, while I'm trying to work with the social worker to see if they will make an exception, because the expectant mom says, no, I really want the adoptive mom to be there, but I also want my boyfriend to be there. And so I have been trying to work with the social workers and hospital administration for them to make an exception. And the adoptive mom goes behind my back, calls the social worker, calls the hospital administration, and that upsets them that both of us are calling, trying to
negotiate,
and to work this out. And so they say, no, fine. Only one support person, and it's her boyfriend. Adoptive mom, I had to drive 2 hours up to when the baby was ready to get discharged from the hospital, just because that was their policy. The baby had to get discharged to the attorney or representative. So I had to drive up to discharge this baby from the hospital because she wanted the baby to go home with the adoptive parents. And it was all because adoptive parents were being pushy and wanted to get things done a little bit quicker than I was pushing to get things done.
Yeah. So talk to me a little bit about the advice that you give when you're working with expectant moms as a birth mom. What advice do you give them in terms of protecting their future selves, or is there any advice that you always give?
So first, any woman that comes to me that is considering adoption, before we even start talking about that, I just want to talk to her and find out what's going on in her life that makes her feel like this is the choice that she needs to make, and this is what she needs to do, whether she has no family support, or she doesn't know if she has any family support because she hasn't told her family yet, or she's unemployed, or she has 3 kids under the age of 3 at home. Before I really offer any advice, I want to find out what's going on in her life that has brought her to reaching out to us. But I guess for women that are considering adoption, even not necessarily ones that talk to me, but if I could tell every expectant mom considering adoption one thing, it would be to work with an agency or attorney that's close to you. So many women just Google adoption and they find adoption.com or one of these big sites that refers them to an agency that's out of state. So now you have an expectant mom who's wanting to make an adoption plan and is scared and confused and trying to work through all of this. And the professional that she's decided to work with is 1,000 miles away. So if I could just give one generic piece of advice to any woman considering adoption, it would really be to reach out to a professional that's at least in your state, preferably in your city or, a city close by. But for women that have already made the decision to place or have already placed their child for adoption, take advantage of the counseling that every agency or attorney should be offering. We do at On Point Legal. We have partnered with an amazing counseling service that offers free if they can't afford it. If they can't afford it, it's $10 sessions for all of our birth moms. And the nonprofit that I started, the Red Thread Foundation, covers that counseling for all of our birth moms. We have a monthly support group for birth moms through the Lifetime Healing Foundation.
That's Ashley Mitchell's foundation. For
yes, that is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And she is a force to be reckoned with.
We put her on. Yes, she is. Yes.
Top 5 moments of my life is getting to spend 3 days with Ashley.
Yeah, I feel like most people feel that way about her.
Yes. But take advantage of the counseling and get yourself into a grief and trauma counselor. That was my biggest mistake, not getting good counseling after my first placement. 1000% led me to being in the place to make a decision 7 years later to place my second daughter for adoption. And I don't regret my decision to place my second daughter for adoption. It's an amazing relationship. I truly gained so many amazing people in my life in doing that. It led me to my job that I have now. But I will wholeheartedly say that if I would have had good grief and trauma counseling after my first placement, I probably wouldn't have placed my second child for adoption. I would have been in a much healthier, much better place to parent after I had placed.
One more question for you.
Yes.
For adopting families, specifically, I think, and we run into this all the time with questions in terms of the perception of what a birth mother is. I would like everyone to take a good look at the smiling face, because I think most people think that birth moms are young, or do all of them do drugs, and it's just, it couldn't be further from the truth. And here you are as a kind of shining example of that I think its average age is 24 to 36. I know you have 2 college degrees, clearly a balanced, very educated, or very articulate, intelligent person. And so are there any other advice you'd like to give adopting families in terms of the perceptions of birth moms?
Don't watch any of the Lifetime movies that talk about adoption. That is, I feel like that's what everyone has in their mind when they think about a birth mom or a woman who's made an adoption plan, is either they're 16 years old or they struggle with addiction, and that's not true. Out of the majority of the expectant moms that I work with, especially since I've started, one has been a teenager and one has struggled with addiction. Everyone else is, I just know that this is not the right time for me to parent. And I want to give my child more than what I can offer at this time.
Yeah. Jess, we're going to have to do a couple more because I have so many more questions.
I'm sorry. I tried to keep.
No, we're just at time for today. And I just, there's so much more to talk to you about. So if people want to get in touch with you, how do they do that?
Our email, or my email address, is jess@myonpointlegal.com. Our website, myonpointlegal.com. You can find us on Facebook and Instagram at onpointlegalLA.
Okay, cool. Okay. Jess, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. I can't wait to do this again so we can answer all the rest of the questions.
We'll talk to you soon.
Yes, ma'am.